I should be wearing a red vestment tonight because St. Andrew was a martyr, but I forgot and put on a white one. So it's okay, the Mass is still valid. St. Andrew, of course, one of the apostles, and he was one of the first apostles to be called, right along with his brother, Simon, who later was named Peter by Jesus. So Peter and Andrew were the first two. And they were just by their nets, with their fishing boats, preparing to fish or just coming in from fishing. And Jesus simply says to them, "Come and follow me." And they immediately leave their boats and their nets and they follow Jesus. At another time, Jesus was walking along and John the Baptist was nearby, and he pointed to Jesus and said, "Behold, the Lamb of God." And one of those who were following in the area of John the Baptist was Andrew. And so he and another disciple decided to follow Jesus. And as they were walking along, Jesus turned around and said, "What are you looking for?" And they said to him, "Master, Rabbi, where do you live?" And Jesus said to them, "Come and see." And so they went home with Jesus wherever he was staying at that time and spent the day with him. Andrew was the one who, while Jesus was preaching to the crowd of 5,000, was the one who presented the young boy with the 5 barley loaves and the 2 fish. Or was it 2 loaves and 5 fish? I forget. But he was the one who pointed that out, and then, of course, Jesus used those to multiply for the crowd. And there was another time when some Gentiles were coming and they were looking for Jesus. They wanted to talk to him. And they approached Philip. But Philip referred them to Andrew. And Andrew was the one who introduced them to Jesus. He preached in Greece and in Turkey, modern-day Greece and Turkey. And he was martyred at Patras. And he was hung on a cross that was put in the shape of an X. So you can imagine, like St. Peter said he didn't feel worthy to die like Christ did, so he asked his executioners to hang him upside down on the cross. Andrew asked that they put him on an X, which would have meant he would have been stretched out rather uncomfortably. So they were so willing to realize, to be sharers in the suffering of Jesus, and knowing that Jesus would give them the strength to endure it. So we know very little about the person of St. Andrew, except that he was called to be an apostle. And that's really enough that we know. He was called by Jesus, and his mission was to preach and to teach. In the opening prayer, it says that he was a preacher and a pastor. And his goal was to just get people to know Christ. That was his goal. And aren't we all called to do that in a certain way? That by our baptism, we're called to be a light of Christ in the world, a light to others. And wherever we can share the good news about Jesus Christ, we should do that. Because it may be our words or our actions that make somebody turn and draw closer to the Lord. And so we have lots of opportunities to do that we may not even be well aware of. But St. Andrew stands as a fine example of being called, being chosen by Christ, responding in obedience, and committing himself completely to the Lord, and deserves our imitation and certainly our prayers. Let us stand now and offer our prayers and petitions.